You wanted the best, then you got the best. The hottest band in the world.
Schmack, oh my god, everybody, hi. Hi, it's Black Sabbath Sunday, if you're watching this on Black Sabbath Sunday. And Joseph Manella, excuse me, wants me to put Diary of a Madman versus Holy Diver. Now, I will say, man, which one do I like more? I gotta say, man, the first two Ozzy albums, this is the best Dio album for me. The first two Ozzy albums is better than Holy Diver. Now, everything Ozzy's done after, I'd put Holy Diver above it, you know? But not the Randy stuff. But that's a vicious album. I think it might get some points. Would it win? If it does, it's all luck of the draw. Let's find out. All right, we start with Over the Mountain versus Stand Up and Shout. Love them both, man, but I gotta go with Over the Mountain. I have a hard time thinking, what's my favorite Ozzy song? Over the Mountain or Diary of a Madman? It's hard to pick which one I like more. And I got these little burps coming up. I'm sorry. I don't know why, man. I just had an apple. I have apple burps. That's odd, right? All right, next. Flying High Again versus Holy Diver. You've been down too long in the midnight sea. What a great, great song Holy Diver is. And Flying High Again, I like more. I do. I do like it more. It came on my shuffle like a couple days ago while I was driving around. I turned that shit up. It's such... That song right there, I think, is Ozzy Osbourne's solo career all in one song. Not so much... I mean, Crazy Train gets all the attention. And, you know, Crazy Train, yeah, he is crazy. And it came out first. But, man... If Flying High came out first, I think Flying High would be more popular than Crazy Train. Am I just a crazy guy? You bet. God, I love that damn song. I love Holy Diver, but Flying High Again, man. To me, is the song that describes Ozzy Osbourne's solo career. No doubt. All right, let's continue. You know, and I'll say, you know, hey, it's nerd talk time on Black Sabbath Sunday. Here's another opinion I have. I think that song encompasses everything Ozzy's done, starting with Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. See, the first four Black Sabbath albums, and the fourth one being my favorite, Ozzy was part of the band. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is where he started... He started to be like, hey, look, I'm a loon. You know, it became more obvious, music-wise, you know. He was a loon from the beginning. If you remember that Black Sabbath freaks out there, if you remember the classic concert that was filmed back in 1970, and Ozzy's in the beginning with the broom and shit, he was already loony then with his eyes crossed. But I think his persona of the loony guy started with Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. And then it got loonier. It got crazier on Sabotage. You know? And yeah, you had, you know, some hints on Technical and Never Say Die. But especially Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and Sabotage. I would say more nerd talk. Alright, let's eliminate both Technical and Never Say Die, because I don't think Ozzy is that loony on those songs as he is on some of the songs on Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and Sabotage. Alright, enough of the nerd talk. Let's get back to action, baby. Alright, by the way, I'm wearing my Black Sabbath shorts. They are bootleg, because what the hell is that? It's like a calf head or cow head, and It's like fucking what is it? Black Sabbath live in Texas? What the hell's up with that? But it says Black Sabbath. So of course I'm gonna wear these damn shorts because it's Black Sabbath shorts, bootleg or not, calf head or not. All right, let's continue this. Oh yeah, Flying High again. All right, You Can't Kill Rock and Roll versus Gypsy. This one might be controversial for some of you folks out there. And I do love them both a lot, but I'm going with Gypsy. Gypsy is just fucking awesome. Vivian's solo on that is very, very Gary Moorish. I mean, Vivian's was a beast, man. Can't take nothing though. He was up there with Randy, dude, if you ask me, as far as... Well, okay, he wasn't up there as far as composition, because Randy owns them all. You know, when it comes to competition, I think Randy was the greatest guitar player to compose music. You know, I like Eddie more, but I think the compositions of Randy were more special. And I'm talking, of course, of the two Ozzy albums. Forget that Quiet Riot crap. There's a friend of mine who goes, you know, because he thinks, like I do, Eddie is his favorite. And then he goes, look at Quiet Riot with Randy. You're going to tell me that, you know, he's that great? It's like, why are you looking at Quiet Riot? Just look at the Ozzy shit, which he did afterwards. You know what I mean? That's a lame excuse, using what he did. You know, it's kind of like, it's the same thing as using what Eddie did in Vangina. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing, you know? Randy sucked in Quiet Riot and Eddie sucked in Vangina, in my opinion. Gypsy takes that one. All right, next, Believer versus Caught in the Middle. I would love to give it to Caught in the Middle, but I gotta go with Believer. And man, I just gotta tell you all, because this is something I witnessed in my life that not many people got to. I know a lot of people are going to leave comments. You all got to. But believe me, more people I have met never saw Randy Rhoads. And I got to. I was lucky enough with all you others I got to. But I didn't see the Diary of a Madman tour. I saw the Blizzard of Oz tour. Front row in front of Randy. You know, I was on Randy's side. And they played Believer that night. Oh, yeah. That song... Oh, one of my favorite Randy Rhoads guitar solos in that song too. And I would say the most Sabbathy Ozzy song with Randy Rhoads. I think that's the most Sabbathy, even though it's kind of doomy. It doesn't sound like Sabbath what Randy's doing, but the vibe of the song is very Sabbathy. Believer takes it. All right, now it's time to pick a random album. And by the way, I cannot... And I'm looking here, I can't use Shame on the Night, which is my favorite song off of Holy Diver, because it runs out of track. So it's time to pick a random album, my friends. Let's go way the hell over here. I'm talking all the way at the end. What's all the way at the end here? Oh man, I just held this up the other day on my podcast. Kubla Khan, which it says here, feature former Megadeth guitarist Greg Handelvoid. Greg played on no Megadeth albums. Must have did a tour or whatever he did with them, but it wasn't on none of their albums. Not a bad album. Kubla Khan, Annihilation. Pretty good stuff. Oddly enough, I held it up on my podcast the other day. All right, side 2. Little Dolls versus Don't Talk to Strangers. Dio, man, come on. Don't dream of women, 'cause they'll only bring you. What a song. One of the greatest Dio songs, no doubt. It wins. All right, Tonight versus Straight Through the Heart. Love them both, man. That's the thing about both these albums. There's not a bad song on either of these albums. But I gotta say, man, Tonight takes it. Tonight, to me, is my favorite Ozzy ballad ever. Even the ballads he did in Sabbath are not as good as Tonight, if you ask me. That's my opinion. But, yeah, I'm giving it to Tonight. How many of you listening to Diary of a Madman at the end of You Can't Kill Rock and Roll and at the end of Tonight, you turn up the volume really loud as it's fading out so you can savor every single note Randy Rhoads is playing? Holy shit, that guy was God. All right. Yeah, Tonight takes it. All right, next. SATO versus Invisible. I'd love to give it to Invisible, but I can't. She was a photograph just torn in half. I love, love, love that song. I love how Dio just paints pictures with words. And he does it very well in Invisible. One of the better songs he paints pictures with words is Invisible. It's an amazing song, but SATO is next level shit. SATO wins. Alright, as I said, we can't use Shame on the Night, but I'll tell you what I'll do after this. It's Diary of a Madman versus Rainbow in the Dark. Rainbow in the Dark, I love. Actually, I will say it's my least favorite on the album, and I'm not saying that because it's the popular one. No, I think Holy Diver is so badass that Rainbow in the Dark will be like my least favorite. And how badass is that song? But Diary of a Madman, man. Like I was saying earlier, I don't know which one I like more. Diary of a Madman or Over the Mountain for the best Ozzy song ever. It's one of those two. One day, I may figure it out. Now, if it was Diary of a Madman versus Shame on the Night, my favorite song off of Holy Diver, I'd still give it to Ozzy. I would still give it to Ozzy. But we're not going to count that. And here it is, Joe, the final score. And there you go, man. Hey, Holy Diver is so badass he got two. That's how I feel. It's very impressive. Because I've said it a million times. In my world, I don't think there's ever been an album as good as Diary of a Madman, Melissa and Don't Break the Oath, and the Merciful Fate EP since that time. You know, since 1984, I don't think there's been any album as good as those four. And boy, there's been some great albums released after 84. But it's a timeline thing, my friends. You whippersnappers, I know, don't agree. And that's all good and dandy, man. But to me, Diary of a Madman has never been matched other than a band called Merciful Fate. But any other band after that can't match Diary of a Madman. And to think, Ozzy wasn't happy with the mix. Randy Rhoads felt like it was rushed. He wished he would have spent more time on it. Can you imagine? They think they could have bettered that. And then, can you imagine if they could? I can't. Anyway, thank you so much, Joseph, for this Black Sabbath track by track related. Joseph is like the savior of Black Sabbath Sunday. I think it was last week. Joseph didn't send for a Black Sabbath. And was it last week? Or maybe I'm thinking of another. Oh, I think it was last week. I actually put my last, the one I did of Sabbath, my last one. So I got to invent some more. Because, you know, Joseph can't fucking save every single week. So I got to think of some Black Sabbath albums to match with something else for future Black Sabbath Sundays when Joseph doesn't save it. Anyway, thank you again, Joseph. Like always, man. Thank you so much. And everybody else out there, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to donate, I got a PayPal in the description below. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Ring that little notification bell and like the video. It's good for the YouTube.
Warning.
So stay frosty. Listen to Skid Row, The Threat. And smack 'em a gob.